Hello, everybody.
Hey there.
We were just entertaining ourselves.
We were indeed.
And if you can't entertain yourself, then who can you entertain?
If you can't laugh at yourself.
With yourself?
Near yourself? I'm not laughing at myself. I'm laughing with myself. Anyway, hi, Lynn.
Hi, Clay.
Welcome back to Fundraising is Funny. It's been a minute.
It's been a minute.
I
can't tell you that this episode.
This
issue, this topic in fundraising, I have lived for 22 years.
All right. Well, let's unpack it.
I think I even lived it when I worked at Disney. In that, so I'll give you a sneak peek into the story I would love to tell.
Okay. I can't. You know I love your stories.
Right. Have you ever been to Disney World?
Yes. Okay.
So one of my favorite things about Disney, and I have a doctorate from the Disney Institute. And you're laughing and I'm laughing, but I have 180 hours worth of classwork at the Disney Institute.
Wow.
And they don't mess around. It's some of the best training in the world. If you could ever get the chance, get yourself a class there. But if you've ever been to Walt Disney World, you'll notice that something is always under construction. But instead of just putting up like ugly, barriers or something, Disney will, kind of camouflage. They do a good job of camouflaging things. And they always put up a sign that says, "Pardon our dust."
Yeah.
With characters or something that's theme appropriate, right? So imagine you're the signage designer at Disney. You have to really be able to figure out how to tell people to get places and how to make it really clear.
Yes.
But signage in the nonprofit world means a completely different thing. There's wayfinding, which is how to get around a campus and things like that. And, how to, get to the oncology department, otolaryngology department, which is basically ear, nose, and throat, but the fancy word for it, right?
Yes.
Right. I just like saying otolaryngology. It makes you seem fancy. And so, signage, though, often comes to mind when we think about donors. And donors love to put up signs, name rooms, name laboratories, name things. And we'll talk about naming in a whole nother episode.
Oh, that's a thing.
To name, to unname, to not name. You know what I mean?
What's in a name?
Well, a lot of things.
True.
A lot of things. And what happens to the naming when someone gets divorced and all that.
Oh.
Do you know that namings are actual property in certain states?
Yes.
It makes me think of NASCAR every time I think of namings. But we're going to talk about signage. So I have a story.
Tell me.
For you. So I'm working at an organization, and of course, the phone rings. And it's one of my friendly gift officers. And they have called the donor relations department to not just say hello, but of course, drop a dime on me, as I call it, which is drop a story or drop something on me that they need me to handle. Well, they have a donor to the organization who visited the organization in person, which pre-pandemic people used to just pop in. Donors just pop in and not pop like a bottle of champagne, pop like when you get up in the morning after the age of 30, that kind of popping. It's uncomfortable, it's painful, and it's really not going to lead anywhere good. So the donor had popped in, and they went looking for their grandparents' sign on the room that they had named, before I was born. And they didn't find it. Yeah, it wasn't where it normally was.
Sorry, that silence was just sort of a gasp. They named the room, and then they went looking for it, and they couldn't find it.
Well, their grandparents named the room.
Okay.
So they go and they visit it, but the signage is gone.
Uh-oh.
So, of course, I get the phone call.
Okay.
Because we're in charge of signage, apparently. As all good donor relations departments are. So I'm like, well, I don't have the, he's like, what happened to the sign? And I'm like, what sign? Where?
Right.
And I'm like, do you even know what the sign said or who it was for or, what hallway? And he's like, well, I know the hallway. And I was like, okay. So I go down to the hallway where the sign's supposed to be, the nice brass plaque, because God, we love brass. And I noticed that the hallway seemed not just empty, but empty. And it also smelled really good. So I was like, we've been renovated.
Yep.
Because hallways and campuses don't always.
No.
So I realized, wow, that's some fresh paint. So, and none of the signage in the entire hallway is there. So I call my friend Phil in facilities. Phil in facilities.
In facilities? Is that a true story?
Maybe.
Okay, I love it.
Maybe Phil in facilities. And like on a university campus, there's two symbols of power. A ring of keys and a walkie-talkie.
Oh.
Notice I didn't say the president's mace or a parking spot.
I was going to say a named parking spot or a reserved parking spot.
Huge sign of power.
Yes, as a university faculty member, a parking spot is
the ultimate. You know you've made it a university when you get a golf cart. Or a gator, as we call them down south. You get yourself a gator, a set of keys, a walkie-talkie, and a clipboard.
Oh.
And a reserved parking spot for those 4 things.
Yep.
You run. You're
in charge.
Back out,
Pretty
trustee. So I go down to Phil after I call him. He says, well, come visit. So I go down and visit Phil in the facilities section, which is on the side of the highway somewhere. And I admire his gator sitting in the parking lot. And I go in to meet with Phil, and he's like, yep, that hallway. We had a water leak.
Okay.
I said, of course we did, Phil. So we had to rip out some of the drywall, and we took all the stuff off the walls because they also needed to all be repainted. Because once we patched one section of the wall, it didn't match.
The only silver lining is like they actually repaired it. Like, I mean, I've seen a lot of campuses where they just would have gone.
Well, I think what happened is they thought they had the paint from 1974, but they didn't have that industrial blue that everybody has.
Right.
So
did they check the new brand colors before they?
No,
never mind.
Always never match. So they took down all the signage, and Phil goes, "So we got it. We got signage." And I said, "Well, where is it?" And he said, "Well, it's over there in the closet." I was like, "Well, was there a plan to put it back up?" And he said, "Well, I figured you'd tell us when you needed it."
Oh, Phil.
So Phil points to a corner, and there's lots of brass in the corner.
Ooh.
Waiting for like
so not just this one sign from this one family. But no, dear. Okay.
Waiting for like a smelter. You know what a smelter is?
Do you know what a smelter is?
It's where you melt brass.
Yes.
The problem is I had no clue what plaque went where and what named what. I don't know about you, but most places don't have a diagram telling them where things go.
Not signage anyway, but you could go back to the file. You can go back to the records and
the file.
Yeah, right. The donor's file and know exactly what was promised in the signage.
Oh, I didn't break a nail. I don't need a nail file.
No, the file. You know,
the file.
The information in the CRM in the database where the sign should go. I'm sure it was recorded there.
He's going to make me eat my feelings, so we're going to take a break. Because he and I are using the word file in a very different way, I believe.
I just, you know.
And so, and when we come back, we're going to talk about these files that Clay believes exist at magical nonprofits. And we're going to talk about signage. So, I'm going to.
What's an appropriate snack for files or signage? I'm not.
I want to eat nails right now.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Funyuns.
Funyuns.
Because when I'm having the super, I like feel like Funyuns and a Mountain Dew are in order.
I feel like Phil likes Funyuns. Phil in facilities.
Phil, I have bribed Phil with Funyuns before.
There we go. Funyuns it is.
Funyuns and Mountain Dew.
I like it.
Right.
All right.
All right.
All right. We'll be back.
Welcome back, Clay.
Hi. How was your snack?
I had a lot of Funyuns.
Did you? I feel like I upset you. I feel like
well, it's not upsetting.
I brought up a sensitive subject.
More than it is just.
Is it funny?
It's funny. Clay was under the impression that we would have files that would tell us,
I am
like,
sure that your predecessor. And I'm sure that the foundation or the university where you worked was thinking long term.
Not only do we have files,
yes,
with gift agreements with detailed signage,
absolutely,
including what goes on it,
yes,
but some genius took a photo of every plaque,
of course,
where it was located,
yes,
what hall. No,
what?
No, Clay, no.
I once did a $500 million campaign that didn't have a single gift agreement or detail in place, but that's a whole other story.
Again, you and these dreams about files. And I'm thinking of the nail file I'm going to use to get out of prison because I hurt the person who didn't have files. Right? I'm thinking violent thoughts, but I've had some Funyuns, so I've calmed down.
There we go.
All this to say,
yes,
those files don't exist, and no one knows what plaque belongs where unless it says on the plaque, this is in honor of dear Grampy Joe, golden ticket winner, room 672.
Right.
And then they renumber all the rooms.
I was just going to say, but the campus plan, renamed all the rooms. Yeah.
So I have this stack of brass, and
let's get down to brass stacks.
Pretty much. And I've got Phil. I've got a donor who's like, my grandpa gave this gift in 1872. And but this is the signage problem. We're promising signage for forever.
Mm-hmm.
Forever don't exist.
No.
What if Phil comes along and busts a hole in the wall?
Well, what if there's a flood?
What if there's a fire? What if there's a hurricane?
Yeah.
What if there's a tornado?
What if
there's a not so bright person who double names the space?
I've seen that happen.
Me too.
That's fun.
It was a coach. He double named the locker room. He promised it to two different donors in the same golf game. He had been drinking. So all of this to say that signage has to be documented.
Yes.
Ideally.
Yes.
Wouldn't it be great as a summer internship if you hired a local college student to document all the signage at your organization? When it was established, who the people are that are related to it, have a plan.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you, or also making sure that, do you really want a sign for that? Is a sign appropriate? I had a donor once who said, well, I'm going to sponsor a scholarship, so I need a plaque. Well, I can't nail the plaque to your student recipient.
Oof.
Right? Like, what am I supposed to do here? So the problem is that we often do signage, we often do these things, and we don't think about what is the word perpetuity and what does it mean? Purple people eater. One-legged, one-horn, flying purple people eater. But
yes.
What does it mean? And how do we communicate? Somebody's like, well, my fill-in facilities would never do that to me. Phil goes on vacation, folks.
Phil's going to retire one day.
And Don's going to replace him.
Yeah.
And what happens when Don rips your signs down? Yeah. Or, God forbid, what's happening in a lot of places is they're hiring third-party contractors to do this work.
Yep.
They don't give a hoot about your signage.
But let's talk about aging infrastructure, too.
Ugh.
I mean, I can name 10 organizations off the top of my head that I know are in aging infrastructure and are about to tear down buildings, right? Selling off property, etc. It happens. Growth.
That's a debacle.
It's a total debacle. But even smaller organizations that are renting their space. After
2020.
Yes.
And the multiple pandemics we had, many people reduced their footprint.
Yes.
And have employees working remotely.
Yes.
They don't need as much office space.
Yes.
So therefore, if they're not providing services in their building, they may downsize their office space. What if you have signage in your office space and what do you do with it?
And what do you do with it?
Right. And so these are things we have to think about. And also, like, what do you do with, things you don't want to take down or don't want to remove? And what are you supposed to do? Be like, well, I know your peepaw has died now, so here's his brass plaque.
Right.
So we're going to have to renovate. So here it is.
Right.
It weighs 72 pounds.
Yeah.
And, we got it for you and it's got his name. So all this to say, and I think the punchline, the message here, have a plan.
Yes.
Be respectful because,
yes.
I think the thing that was hardest is we're joking and we're laughing about Phil and his cabinet of bronze, but that was their grandparent. And for them, they were coming to look to honor him.
Sure.
And wanted to see the sign that granddaddy put up.
Sure.
I need them to get a better hobby. Right. But that for them and their family is a significant thing. And so how do we deal with these issues? And, of course, the sincere apology and we'll get that right back up. And do you happen to know where it went? And,
well,
like, where should I put this?
Yeah. And you're actually reminding me of something I haven't thought about in quite a while. When my father passed away, the church that he worked at named a bus for him. And that bus would often be a first responder into tough situations and deliver food and blankets and warmth and, things
great volunteerism.
Yeah. I have no idea what's happened to that bus or if that program is still continuing.
Do the wheels still on it go round and round?
I have no idea. So I think for me, the punchline here is, even though we see that sign every day or that thing that has a donor's name on it, to somebody somewhere, it likely has meaning.
Absolutely. And sometimes we play too gallantly with that. Cavalier, gallant.
Yeah.
Oh, that reminds me of Michael Gallant, who was on ER. He was a great character. He passed away. But anyway.
Did he have a bus named for him, though?
No.
See?
And that also, and we can do this in a future episode on naming, we also have to be careful what we name.
Agreed.
Because the wheels on the bus are going to stop going round and round.
Yeah.
Eventually the bus is going to live out its livelihood.
What we name and how we recognize donors, of course, is, a much, much bigger discussion. But just in terms of the signage.
Right.
The signage itself, the physicality
of it.
Right.
And what do you allow signage for in terms of what if it's an institute or what if it doesn't even require, it's just.
Now, Lynn, I'm going to bring up a really wacky idea.
Oh, you know how I love wacky.
This is going to be a little blasphemous.
Well,
we're going to upset some people.
Careful.
I'm going to upset some people.
I will blame all of it on you.
Please do. I will take the heat because my feelings about the democratization of philanthropy. That giving is open to everyone, regardless of level.
Like generosity. Mm-hmm.
What if we stopped naming things?
Well, see that I'm here for that.
What if we stopped putting up signs?
My donor relations people would be cheering you on from. Can you be president?
What if we actually had conversations, open, honest, good, true conversations with donors that said, listen, we don't name things. We don't put up signs. And here's why.
Did you know that 9 times out of 10, when a naming or signage is brought up, it's brought up by a fundraiser and not the donor?
Oh, 100%. Totally.
Donors are not like,
totally.
Now look here. I'm going to give you this $14, and in exchange, you're going to name the water fountain for me.
Now, I've had a few. I've had a few.
9 times out of 10.
But for the most part.
And you will very rarely catch a female donor wanting something named for her. The older I get, the longer I've done this, I am more and more coming to the belief that the open, honest conversations with donors of directly saying, look, that sign costs this amount of money. It takes this amount of staff. It does this, and this. And I know how you look at me when I say this, but I will go to my retirement being a Pollyanna about the goodness inherent in people. And I believe I truly believe that most donors give because they believe in caring for the beneficiary and the mission. They want to have an impact. They want to make a difference.
And if we have those conversations with them about, you want to make a difference? Well, the way you're going to make a difference here is, you know what? I think most donors too would actually go, you know what? We don't put up signs because your gift is important. And every alumni who gives an amount equal to their graduation year, the year after they graduate, is equally as important. I think most donors would go, I get that. I'm here for that.
Most donors would. And, we don't give them the credit they deserve oftentimes. We're just trying to come up with something.
Yep.
And I always say, if I have a choice between giving a donor the impact of their support or putting up a sign, which one do you think I'm going to choose? And, the price of bronze is going up.
If I were an executive director in charge of a budget, If I were an executive director in charge of a budget and therefore watching staff salaries and thinking about how much of my staff salary was spent doing certain things, I would much rather my staff salary was spent thanking, acknowledging, and sharing impact with donors than in working with a sign company to get the exact right font on a lump of brass.
You know right now that there are donor relations people like worshiping wherever you want them to and just loving on you because they're like, I cannot do another sign and I can't do another sign or meaningless piece of recognition when they know that it wasn't the donor's idea.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think today, so in addition to, really honing in on, signage and having a plan and doing all of that, but also we need to go, what are in our core values for our donors?
Yep.
And what does it mean to them to name and, there's lots of ways and the old adage used to be, and I know we're running on a little bit here, but I want to cover this really explicitly. Well, if they see a donor's name on a sign, then they'll want to give too. So if I see the T. Clay Buck lacrosse locker room, it's one of those sports ball thingies.
Yeah.
Ticket office, memorial ticket office.
Memorial? I'm dead in your scenario?
Oh, no, not memorial.
Thank you.
It's late in the afternoon here and he doesn't know what I'm saying. The T. Clay Buck honorific.
There we go.
Memorial ticket office.
Yes.
I'm supposed to be like, wow, that's inspiring. I should give too.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a sign outside of something and been like, I could give too?
No. Because you asked legitimately only twice in my entire life.
All right.
Have I ever seen actual signage that made me want to give?
Okay.
We're at the end. Why don't I hold those stories for when we talk about recognition? Or do you want me to tell those stories real quick?
Well, I want you to give me the Reader's Digest of
Reader's
one
Digest
of them.
version. One of them was a place we visited in a city that we love, and their signage was so clever and so well done and so integrated into the experience of the organization that I went, I would do that. I would do that.
See, I have seen signage I've wanted to steal before.
I've seen signage I've wanted
That's
to.
at Disney for me. I'm like, ooh, I wonder if I could get away. And then I remember I'm on camera. So I don't take it. And I didn't take it when I worked there either. I did steal a flag once, but Disney doesn't know that. And so we have to put that on my permanent record.
Don't anybody tell.
But all this
I've seen signage I wanted to tear down.
Oh,
does that count?
No, that's a dream.
Okay.
But all this to say, that's the motive. Other donors will see it and want to give. And I call BS on that. And I think that's not maybe our current generation of donors, And so we have more to do in this space. We have more to talk about in terms of namings and recognition.
Yeah.
But when you're thinking about your signage, have a plan for renovation.
Yep.
Get an intern, get somebody to help you document it.
Yep.
It's a great job for development officers, kid.
Wow.
Instead of carrying beers into events, they can, do some documentation at your organization or something fun.
I'm not going to talk about the HR implications.
That's an internship. That's a professional, experiential. Oh, okay. It's a family business.
On that note, I love that cackle. On that note, share with us your best funny signage stories.
The Clay Buck Memorial ticket. Oh, sorry, no.
The Clay Buck Memorial.
I have very many, but one of the things that happened, I worked at a university that had a walk of honor. Mm-hmm. And one of their former presidents would give you a tour of the Walk of Honor. Mm-hmm. And it was famous figures who had visited campus or were notable. And they would go get a rock from wherever they were from. And they would have it emblazoned with their name and have a little place for it on the Walk of Honor. Mm-hmm. And the president used to always talk about how amazing these people were. And then he'd always stop in the middle of the Walk of Honor and he'd start talking about how hard life is and that nobody's ever perfect. And he'd pick up the rock and he turned it over, and on the other side was the really famous person's name spelled wrong. But it was a rock that they had gone like 3,000 miles and gotten from their hometown.
Wow.
And he said, and you want to know how many people checked the proof on this rock before the person engraved it?
Yep.
11. So then he sets the rock back down in the grass and says, life is difficult. Make sure you don't trip over a rock.
Wow.
It's one of my favorite signage stories.
I love it. I love it. Well, let's hear from you. Let's hear from you all over on fundraisingisfunny.com. Yep. Share with us your best, funniest signage story.
I also have signage in a hospital, and I'll post a photo of it where it's got beautiful donor signage, and then Slam Dam in the middle of it is a lit up exit sign.
Come over to fundraisingisfunny.com. Share with us your great signage stories. Share with us how you handle signage. And done anything clever or fun, or share pictures. Are you?
We'd love to have you.
We would. I'm not going to tell the story about how whenever we travel, I wind up looking at donor recognition in museums and stuff.
We all do. But send us your favorite photos.
There you go.
We need to see them.
There you go.
Thanks all for hanging in there with us.
Exactly.
We're so grateful. We might even put up a sign.
Fundraising is funny, y'all.
I saw the sign.